Did the Dolphins just win the Super Bowl? Some kind of Cuban-American Mardi Gras? We are celebrating the imminent death of the non-plus-ultra evildoer of the 20th century, Fidel. These are my people. However, since I don't see Castro as the root of all evil in the universe, well, I'm a little out of step with my tribe, and I could give a shit. But there is a complicating factor. My dad. He gives a shit.
Max, tell me about your role. I hear that you organized some of the protests.
Esto es una protesta contra las medidas injustas manejadas por la extrema derecha cubana.
He really does care, and he has from the very beginning. Back in Havana, he was a revolutionary, and he fought alongside his buddy, Fidel. Then he fought Fidel, and it was Miami, here we come. But his animosity toward Castro didn't last. Now he wanted dialogue. Really, he wanted peace. That's when the shit hit the fan.
A group of fascists tried to kill me in Little Havana. But anyway, this is the situation that any real newspaper man or journalist have to face when you want to openly explain your position.
Bombings, drive-by shootings, assassination attempts on his life. But who would do this to us? We were Americans now. It must be the communists, right? Wrong. My father became the focal point of the anti-Castro terrorists. These were Cuban Americans, people just like you and me. Well, not exactly. They were trained by the CIA. What most people don't know is that terrorism in America did not begin on September 11th. In the 1970s and the 1980s, there was a reign of terror in Miami. There was as many as 7 bombings in one day and hundreds per year. The culprits were not communists. They were Americans, Cuban Americans, and my dad was at the epicenter.
Max, tell me about your role. I hear that you organized some of the protests.
We are here protesting against the new rules of the Bush administration that divide the Cuban family. De un embargo criminal. Esto es una protesta contra las medidas injustas manejadas por la extrema derecha cubana en función de razones electorales. Mire, permíteme. Hay un solo programa en Miami donde cada cual dice lo que piensa.
As you can see, my dad actually cares a great deal about Cuba. And he has from the very beginning. And as far as I can remember, my dad has fought for the Cuban people. And as far as I can remember, things haven't gone his way.
No dividan a la familia cubana. No hay razón para que por una cuestión política...
Están a favor de estas medidas, dicen que es la única forma de sacar a Castro.
So here I was in my homeland, wondering what the hell was so great about it? And it's so small. What was it about this place that inspired so much passion, so much longing, so much hate? Cuban exiles longed to return and hated Castro for hijacking their homeland. For me, it was never about Castro. After all, if Castro was responsible for my living next to my only friend, Lily Mackenzie, then que viva la revolución. No Cuba. Cuba was my enemy. Cuba and every one of those 11,340,670 Cubans. They stole my father's attention and they wasted his life, and I hated them for it.
We are now into, the 45th year of a standoff with Fidel Castro, with embargoes, with tightening it and tightening it and tightening it. You know, there's an old expression that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Del pueblo de Cuba. No podemos dividir a los cubanos y mucho menos a la familia. La familia es la base de la sociedad.
This division, more than anything else, has been my overwhelming observation here. Back home, we talk about broken families as a result of divorce. Here, everyone is broken. Mothers, fathers, sons, nephews, sisters, grandparents. Everyone is missing someone. There's a sense of incompleteness that permeates everything.
¿Usted quién tiene familia allá? ¿Todo el mundo?
Yo.
¿Quién tú tienes?
A mi abuelo. Ese fue hace como... Mi papá tenía 17, ahora tiene 47. Va a cumplir 46.
¿Y tú quién tienes?
A tíos, a primos, a primas, un millón de gente.
Sí.
Lo que no se reconoce pero porque yo no había nacido cuando eso salía.
¿Y no han venido a visitar? Ah, ya. Entonces, ¿hace cuánto que no ves a tu papá?
Hace 5 años que yo lo veía y en noviembre del año pasado.
Ah, ¿y cómo la pasaron?
Bien.
¿Y cuándo tú crees que regrese otra vez?
Cuando yo tomo el camino de la insurrección armada, me voy a las montañas, al Escambray, y realmente se me designa el encargado de la propaganda de la organización.
While Castro fought from the mountains, my father travels back and forth from Havana to the rebel stronghold and broadcasts that Batista's days are numbered. The American press picked up the story and embraced the young revolutionaries. The death blow, the withdrawal of U.S. support. As the student leader of the Orthodox Party, he coined the phrase, Cuba sí, Yankee no, a battle cry against U.S. domination of the island. We decided to visit his old student union. My dad quickly warmed up to his favorite role, Cuba's unofficial social historian. As we left, my dad decided to quiz one of the current students about campus history and folklore. Well, I wanted to make this movie because I really wanted to understand my father's passion. When I was growing up, it was Cuba, 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 Castro, Cuba. And I really hadn't become very interested. In fact, I had had just about enough of Cuba. They've heard of the Bay of Pigs, they've heard of the Cuban Missile Crisis, they've heard of Fidel Castro. But really, what do we really know as Americans about Cuba? We get a lot of misinformation. We don't really understand why we can't visit Cuba. I really wanted to focus mine, not so much about Cuba and Castro, but about the Cuban exiles, my people, the people that left Cuba after 1959, that settled mostly in Miami and had developed a political culture that was very unique. The only thing we've heard about Cuban Americans is that they're very successful, that they're very politically astute. The movie is my activist piece. It's how I communicate to Americans that the US policy toward Cuba is wrong, it's misguided, and it's held hostage by people that do not have the best interest of America. It is not in the best interest of America to have this hostile policy toward Cuba. It's in the interest of a small group of people in Miami and 4 congresspersons from Florida. It was a struggle to get him to sit down so I could interview him. Now, when we were in Cuba, all I had to do was follow him around with the camera. He's very active there, and the movie was making itself. But to actually get him in the chair to sit down, that was another story.